During my wife's final prenatal checkup, the doctor began trembling while looking at the ultrasound. He pulled me aside. Leave this hospital now and file for divorce. What do you mean? There's no time to explain. You'll understand when you see this. After seeing what was on the screen, I never went home again. The fluorescent lights in Dr. Martinez's examination room hummed with that particular frequency that makes your teeth ache if you listen too closely. I wasn't listening. I was watching my wife's face, the way Sarah's eyes fixed on the ceiling tiles, counting them maybe, or perhaps just avoiding my gaze the way she'd been doing for weeks now. Her hand rested on the swell of her belly, that universal gesture of expectant mothers, protective and possessive all at once. 7 months. We were 7 months into what should have been the happiest chapter of our lives. Everything looks good so far, Dr. Martinez said, his voice carrying that practiced cheerfulness that pediatric specialists perfect over years of practice. He was spreading the cold gel across Sarah's abdomen, and she flinched, not from the temperature I noticed, but from something else, something internal. Heart rate is strong, growth measurements are right on track. I squeezed Sarah's other hand, the one that wasn't protecting our child. Her fingers felt cold despite the warmth of the room. Hear that, babe? Everything's perfect. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile you'd give a stranger on an elevator. Polite, distant, gone before it ever really arrived. Dr. Martinez moved the transducer across her belly, and the monitor filled with those strange, beautiful shadows that somehow resolve into a human being if you know how to look. I'd been to every appointment, every single one. Memorized the grainy images, the measurements, the terminology, biparietal diameter, femur length, amniotic fluid index. I'd become fluent in the language of ultrasound because this was my child, my family, my future taking shape in those black and white pixels. Let me just get a better angle here, Dr. Martinez murmured, adjusting the transducer. His eyes narrowed slightly as he studied the screen, then his hands stilled. It was subtle at first, a hesitation that lasted maybe 3 seconds too long. But I'd known Dr. Martinez for 7 months, had watched him perform the same examination 4 times before, and he'd never paused like that, never stopped mid-movement as if someone had pressed pause on his entire nervous system. Is everything okay? Sarah's voice was tight. Yes, just let me... He moved the transducer again, pressed a few buttons on the machine. The image zoomed, shifted, refocused. And that's when I saw it. The tremor in his hand. Barely perceptible, but definitely there. Dr. Martinez, who'd told us during our first appointment that he'd delivered over 3,000 babies, whose hands were steadier than a surgeon's when he needed them to be, was shaking. Doctor? I leaned forward, trying to see what he was seeing on the screen. The image looked the same to me, the curve of a skull, the delicate architecture of a spine, the flutter of a heartbeat in the chest cavity. What's wrong? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a screenshot. Then another, then a third. His jaw worked silently, as if he were chewing on words he couldn't quite bring himself to speak. The printer whirred to life, spitting out the thermal images with their chemical smell, and their promise of a future I was starting to realize might not exist. Sarah, I need you to stay calm, he said finally, and those 6 words detonated in my chest like a grenade. Medical professionals only tell you to stay calm when there's something catastrophic they're about to reveal. The baby is healthy, physically everything is developing normally. Then what? I started, but he held up his hand. Mr. Chen, I need to speak with you privately, right now. Sarah's hand tightened in mine, her nails digging crescents into my palm. Whatever you need to say, you can say it in front of both of us. But Dr. Martinez was already standing, already moving toward the door with an urgency that made my stomach turn over. Mr. Chen, now, please. I looked at Sarah, saw something flicker across her face. Was it fear, guilt, recognition? It passed too quickly for me to name it. It's okay, I said, though nothing about this was okay. I'll be right back. The hallway outside the examination room was quieter than it had any right to be. Through the walls, I could hear the muffled sounds of other appointments, other families receiving their own doses of joy or terror. But here in this corridor, with its bland watercolor paintings of beaches and meadows, it felt like the world had contracted to just the 2 of us, me and this doctor who wouldn't meet my eyes. James, he said, using my first name for the first time in 7 months, I need you to listen to me very carefully, and I need you to trust that what I'm about to tell you is in your best interest. Just tell me. Is the baby sick? Is Sarah sick? No. Physically, they're both fine. He glanced back at the closed door, then pulled me further down the hallway, away from potential eavesdroppers. James, I'm going to show you something, and when I do, I need you to remain calm. Can you do that? I nodded, though I had no idea if I could or couldn't. My heart was hammering against my ribs, each beat a question. What? Dr. Martinez pulled out his phone, shielded the screen from the hallway, and opened his photo gallery. I took these screenshots before the patient could see them clearly. I'm showing you this because he paused, seemed to wrestle with some internal ethical dilemma. Because I took an oath to do no harm, and I believe that includes preventing harm before it occurs. He turned the phone toward me. The image was an ultrasound, obviously, the same one he'd just been taking. But he'd zoomed in on a particular area, enhanced it somehow, added contrast that made the features sharper, more defined. I stared at it, trying to understand what I was seeing, why this mattered, why his hand had been shaking, and why he'd pulled me out here like the building was on fire. And then I saw it. The profile. The curve of the nose, the shape of the brow, the distinct bone structure that was unmistakably, undeniably, impossibly wrong. I don't understand, I whispered. But that was a lie. I understood perfectly. I just couldn't accept it yet. James, I've been doing this for 23 years, and I've seen thousands of ultrasounds at this stage of development. Certain genetic markers are visible by the third trimester. Ethnic characteristics, facial structure patterns, probability mappings. He was speaking carefully now, like a man navigating a minefield. The baby your wife is carrying has features that are inconsistent with your genetic profile. My mouth was dry. What are you saying? I'm saying that based on what I'm seeing here, the nasal bone structure, the facial profile measurements, the projected skeletal development, this child is not biologically yours. The hallway tilted. I put my hand against the wall, felt the cool paint under my palm, focused on that sensation because it was the only real thing in a world that had suddenly become untethered from logic or reason. You're sure? I'm sure enough that I'm risking my medical license by showing you this. His voice was gentle but firm. I'm sure enough that I would bet my career on it. And I'm sure enough that I'm going to advise you to leave this hospital right now, go directly to a lawyer, and file for divorce before this situation becomes any more complicated than it already is. But 7 months. We've been together through the whole pregnancy. Every appointment, every symptom, every kick. Even as I said it, I could hear how pathetic it sounded. How naive. I know, and I'm sorry, but James, listen to me carefully. You need to protect yourself legally, right now, today. If you wait until the baby is born, if your name goes on that birth certificate, you could be held financially responsible for a child that isn't yours. The laws around paternity are complex, and they don't always favor biological truth. I stared at the ultrasound image on his phone, at the profile of a child I'd already loved, already named in my head. Alexander if it was a boy, Sophia if it was a girl. Already imagined teaching to ride a bike and helping with homework and walking down the aisle someday. A child that, according to this man with his 23 years of experience, was not mine. Can you send me these images? He hesitated. I could lose my license. Please. Something in my voice must have convinced him, because he nodded once and typed in my number. My phone buzzed with an incoming message. 3 ultrasound images, each one zoomed and enhanced to show what he'd shown me. Evidence, proof. A door I couldn't unopen. What do I do now, I asked, and hated how lost I sounded. You go back in there. You don't let on that you know. You maintain composure, you tell her the doctor said everything looks fine, then you leave, tell her you have an errand, a work emergency, whatever you need to, and you go directly to a lawyer. Do you understand? Do not go home. Do not confront her. Not yet. Not until you have legal protection. And Sarah? We'll be fine. Physically, I meant what I said. She and the baby are healthy, but James... He put his hand on my shoulder, and the gesture felt like a benediction or maybe a condolence. Whatever happens next, whatever you discover, remember that you deserve the truth, and you deserve better than this. I nodded, though I wasn't sure I agreed. Wasn't sure what I deserved or didn't deserve. Wasn't sure of anything anymore, except that the floor beneath my feet had become quicksand, and I was already sinking. How long do I have before she notices something's wrong? The rest of the appointment is just standard measurements and scheduling the next visit. 10 minutes and maybe 15. He glanced at his watch. I'll keep it brief, but James, you need to be convincing. If she suspects you know, she might take steps to protect herself legally, and that will make everything harder for you. He opened the door back to the examination room, and I followed, stepping back into a life that looked exactly the same, but felt completely different. Sarah was still on the examination table, still had her hand on her belly, and still wore that distant expression that I'd been misinterpreting for weeks as pregnancy fatigue, or hormonal mood swings, or normal third trimester anxiety. How long had she been lying to me? When had it started? Who was he? This father of a child I'd been preparing to raise as my own. Everything okay? Sarah asked. And there was something sharp in her voice, something alert and watchful. Fine, I said, and the lie tasted like copper in my mouth. Just some questions about the delivery room procedures. Dr. Martinez was already back at his computer, typing notes, his face professionally neutral. All the measurements look good, he said, not looking at either of us. Baby's approximately 6 pounds, 2 ounces based on current projections. We'll see you back in 2 weeks for the next checkup. And then we'll start talking about birth plans. Sarah was watching me. I could feel her eyes tracking my movements as I helped her sit up, as I handed her the paper towels to wipe the gel from her stomach, as I gathered our things with hands that somehow remained steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. James, are you sure you're okay? She asked again. You look pale. Just hungry, I said. Didn't eat lunch. We walked out of the medical center together, my hand on the small of her back like it had been at every other appointment. Like nothing had changed, like I wasn't drowning in the space between what I'd believed 5 minutes ago and what I knew now. The parking lot was bathed in that golden late afternoon light that Los Angeles does better than anywhere else. October in California. 74 degrees and crystalline clear, the kind of day that belongs on postcards. Sarah paused by the passenger door of our Camry, one hand shading her eyes against the sun. Want to grab dinner? She asked. I've been craving that Thai place in Silver Lake. And there it was, the moment where I had to choose. I could get in the car, drive to the restaurant, order pad CAUW, and pretend everything was fine, continue living in the comfortable fiction I'd been inhabiting for 7 months, maybe longer. Or I could follow Dr. Martinez's advice and protect myself while I still could. Actually, something came up at work, I heard myself say. Emergency deadline. I need to head back to the office. Her face closed down. On a Friday afternoon? I know, terrible timing. But it shouldn't take more than a couple hours. Why don't you head home, rest up, and I'll pick something up on my way back? She studied me for a long moment, and I wondered what she saw. Could she tell that I knew? Could she see the fault lines spiderwebbing across my composure? Fine, she said finally. I'll see you at home. I kissed her forehead. Habit. Autopilot. The ghost of who I'd been an hour ago. And helped her into the passenger seat. Watched her buckle in, her movements careful around her belly, protecting that life growing inside her. A life that wasn't mine. I waited until she'd pulled out of the parking lot before I got in my own car. Waited until her silver Honda had turned onto Sunset Boulevard and disappeared into traffic. Then I sat there, in the driver's seat with my hands on the steering wheel and my forehead pressed against my knuckles, and let myself feel it. The full weight, trail, the vertigo of a future collapsing. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Love you. See you tonight. I stared at those 3 words, love you. When had they become a lie? Had they always been, or was there a specific moment, a specific choice, a specific night, when she decided that whatever we had wasn't enough? Another text came through, this one from an unknown number. This is Dr. Martinez. I'm attaching contact information for several family law attorneys I've worked with before. They're discreet and effective. Please take care of yourself. 3 names, 3 phone numbers, 3 possible futures. I picked the first one. Samantha Reeves, whose office was in Century City, and dialed before I could talk myself out of it. Reeves Family Law, a receptionist answered. How may I help you? I need to speak with someone about filing for divorce, I said, and hearing the words out loud made them real in a way they hadn't been before. Today, as soon as possible. I understand. Ms. Reeves has an opening at 5 o'clock this afternoon if you can make it to our office. It's a consultation, 1 hour, and we do require payment up front. I'll be there, I said, whatever it costs. I gave her my information, confirmed the address, and ended the call. Then I started the car and drove away from the medical center, away from the life I'd been building, towards something I couldn't yet name but knew would hurt in ways I hadn't begun to imagine. I didn't go home. Not that day, and not ever again. Century City on a Friday afternoon is a study in architectural arrogance. Glass towers, reflecting other glass towers in an infinite loop of self-regard. The Reeves family law offices occupied the 32nd floor of one such tower. All floor-to-ceiling windows and modern furniture that cost more than my car. The receptionist who greeted me looked barely out of college, with the kind of effortless polish that comes from growing up in Brentwood or Pacific Palisades. Mr. Chen, Ms. Reeves will see you now. Samantha Reeves was not what I expected. For some reason, I'd pictured someone older, severe, with steel gray hair pulled into a tight bun. Instead, the woman who stood to shake my hand was maybe 40, with warm brown skin and eyes that managed to be both sympathetic and assessing at the same time. And she wore a navy suit that probably cost $3,000 and an expression that suggested she'd heard every terrible story there was to hear and still managed to sleep at night. James, she said, gesturing to a leather chair that faced her desk, Dr. Martinez called ahead and gave me some context, but I'd like to hear it from you. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told her about Sarah and me, about how we'd met 4 years ago at a friend's wedding, about the 2 years of dating before I proposed on the beach in Malibu at sunset, because she'd said once that she loved the way the light looked at golden hour. About the modest wedding we'd had in her parents' backyard because we were saving money for a house. About the conversation we'd had last December, 10 months ago, when we'd decided we were ready to start a family. She got pregnant in February, I said, watching Samantha take notes on a yellow legal pad. Or at least, that's when she told me she was pregnant. We were thrilled. I was thrilled. This was the plan, our plan. And the pregnancy progressed normally, as far as I knew. Morning sickness in the first trimester, but nothing unusual. We started telling people at 12 weeks. Her parents threw her a shower last month. I assembled a crib last weekend. My voice cracked slightly on that last part. The crib. It was still in the nursery, waiting. Everything was fine. Everything was perfect. Until today. Until today. I pulled out my phone and showed her the ultrasound images Dr. Martinez had sent. Watched her expression remain neutral as she examined them, though her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You understand, she said carefully, that ultrasounds aren't legally admissible as proof of paternity. They're suggestive, certainly, but they're not definitive. For legal purposes, you'd need a paternity test. So get one. Can we do that before the baby's born? We can. There are non-invasive prenatal paternity tests that use the mother's blood and the father's saliva. They're safe, accurate, and available as early as 7 weeks into pregnancy. But there's a complication. Of course there is. You need the mother's consent or a court order. And getting a court order requires evidence of fraud or deception, which brings us back to the fact that ultrasounds aren't legally definitive. She set down her pen and looked at me directly. James, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Have you noticed anything else? Any other signs or behaviors that might support a claim of infidelity? I started to say no, but then I stopped, because now that she'd asked, now that I was looking at the past 7 months through this new lens, there were things, small things I'd dismissed or explained away. She's been distant, I said slowly. Since the second trimester started, maybe longer, we used to talk about everything, and now it's like pulling teeth to get her to tell me about her day. She's been protective of her phone, takes it everywhere, even to the bathroom. And she's been going out more. Pregnancy yoga, she calls it. But the classes run 2, sometimes 3 hours long. Do you know where these classes are held? She said it was a studio in Pasadena. Serenity Wellness, or something like that. Samantha made a note. We'll verify that. What else? Money. She's been asking for more money. Says it's for maternity clothes and nursery items, but we have credit cards with both our names on them. Why would she need cash? Even as I said it, I felt stupid, naive. How had I not questioned this before? And there's this thing she does now when I try to touch her belly. She flinches, just slightly, but It's there, like she doesn't want me to feel connected to the baby. Has her schedule changed? Does she travel for work? She's a graphic designer, works from home mostly, but she's been taking more client meetings in person, usually at coffee shops or restaurants, sometimes in the evenings. Samantha was writing faster now, filling the legal pad with notes. Social media? Has her behavior changed there? She never posts pictures of us anymore, just landscapes, food, quotes, and she untagged herself from a bunch of our couple photos a few months back. Said she wanted to keep the pregnancy private until after the baby was born, didn't want to jinx it. James, I'm going to be direct with you. Based on what you're telling me, there's a strong possibility that your wife has been conducting an affair throughout the pregnancy, possibly longer. The question we need to answer now is, what do you want to do about it? I looked out the window at the Los Angeles skyline, at the sun sinking toward the Pacific. Somewhere out there, Sarah was at home, maybe making dinner, maybe texting someone I didn't know about, maybe living an entire second life I'd been too trusting to see. I want the truth, I said, but whatever it is, whoever he is, I want to know. Then we're going to need to conduct an investigation. I work with a private investigator who specializes in these cases. He's discreet, thorough, and expensive. He'll document everything, where she goes, who she meets, financial transactions if we can access them. But James, I need you to understand something. Once we start down this road, there's no going back. You're going to learn things you may not want to know. You're going to see evidence of betrayal that will hurt in ways you can't anticipate. Are you prepared for that? Was I? I thought about the crib in the nursery, about the name we hadn't quite agreed on yet, about the future I'd been so certain of just 4 hours ago. Yes, I said. I'm prepared. Good. Then here's what we're going to do. You're going to go home. Dr. Martinez said not to go home. Dr. Martinez was being cautious, and I understand why. But if you suddenly disappear, if you don't come home tonight, your wife is going to know something's wrong. She'll lawyer up, she'll become defensive, and our investigation becomes 10 times harder. So you're going to go home. You're going to act normal. You're going to be the loving, supportive husband you've been for the past 7 months. Can you do that? I wasn't sure, but I nodded anyway. Good. While you're doing that, I'm going to draw up divorce papers. We won't file them yet, not until we have concrete evidence, but we'll have them ready. I'm also going to have my investigator, his name is Marcus Webb, start surveillance immediately. He'll need some information from you, her typical schedule, known associates, vehicle information. Can you provide that? Yes. Excellent. Now let's talk about finances. Do you have joint bank accounts? One checking, one savings. Both are names. Credit cards? 3. All joint. As of right now, I want you to start documenting every transaction. Screenshot everything. If money starts disappearing, I want to know about it. Do you own property together? We rent. A 2-bedroom in Echo Park. $1,500 a month. Both our names on the lease. No mortgage then. That's good. One less thing to untangle. What about assets? Cars, investments, retirement accounts? My car is in my name. Hers is in hers. I have a 401k through work, about $40,000. She has a freelance SEO retirement account, maybe 20, no other investments. Samantha kept writing. Life insurance? Through my job. $100,000 policy. Sarah's the beneficiary. We'll need to change that. Not now, but soon. What about her family? Are they aware of any of this? Her family? I tried to picture Sarah's parents, Richard and Margaret, retired school teachers living in Ventura. They'd been nothing but kind to me. Had they known? Had they watched me play the fool at the baby shower last month? Had they smiled and congratulated me while knowing their daughter was carrying another man's child? I have no idea. We'll find out. Family members are often complicit in these situations, either actively or through willful ignorance. She flipped to a new page on her legal pad. Now let's talk about the child. Do you want to pursue any parental rights? The question hit me like a physical blow. It's not my child. We don't know that for certain yet. And even if it's not biologically yours, if you've been acting as the father throughout the pregnancy, if you've contributed financially to prenatal care and preparation, a court might argue that you have some stake in the situation. I don't want to raise another man's child, I understand. But you need to consider the possibility that the court may not give you a choice. If your name goes on the birth certificate, If you're present at the birth, if you allow yourself to be established as the legal father, you could be held financially responsible regardless of biology. So what do I do? You stay away from the hospital when she goes into labor. You don't sign any birth certificates. You don't acknowledge paternity in any official capacity. And ideally, we have this resolved before the baby is born. She checked her watch. That gives us approximately 8 to 10 weeks, assuming she carries to term. 8 to 10 weeks of living a lie, of sleeping next to a woman I no longer knew, of pretending to care about a future that didn't exist, of participating in my own humiliation. I can do that, I said. I know this is difficult, James. I know it feels impossible, but I've been doing this for 15 years, and I promise you, you will survive this. You will get through it. And when we're done, you will have the truth and the legal protection you deserve. She slid a contract across the desk. This is a standard retainer agreement. $5,000 to start, which covers the initial investigation and legal filing. If this goes to court, we'll need to discuss additional fees. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, we gather evidence. I pulled out my credit card, the one in just my name, the one I used for work expenses, and handed it to her assistant, who'd appeared silently at some signal I hadn't noticed. One more thing, Samantha said as I stood to leave. Don't tell anyone about this. Not your friends, not your family, and especially not your wife. The element of surprise is the only advantage we have. Understood? Understood. She walked me to the elevator, shook my hand again with that same firm, confident grip. Marcus will be in touch within the hour. He'll want to meet you somewhere discreet. Follow his instructions exactly. And James, try to get some sleep tonight. You're going to need your strength for what comes next. The elevator descended 32 floors, and with each floor, I felt myself sinking deeper into a reality I hadn't chosen and didn't want. The lobby was busy with end-of-day traffic. Lawyers in expensive suits, paralegals clutching files, clients wearing the shell-shocked expressions of people whose lives had just been legally dismantled. I was one of them now. A client. A case. A man whose wife was carrying another man's child. My phone buzzed as I reached the parking garage. Marcus Webb, the text said, followed by an address in Koreatown. Meet me in 30 minutes. Come alone. I got in my car and drove through rush hour traffic through the golden hour that Sarah loves so much, toward a meeting with a private investigator who would help me unravel my own life. The radio was playing something I didn't recognize. Pop music, cheerful and meaningless. I turned it off and drove in silence. In 30 minutes. In 30 minutes, I would learn how to become someone I'd never wanted to be, a man spying on his own wife. The address Marcus Webb had sent me belonged to a nondescript office building on Western Avenue, the kind of place that houses insurance brokers and tax preparers and businesses you don't think about unless you need them. The third-floor directory listed M. Webb Consulting in small letters between a bail bondsman and a paralegal service. His office was at the end of a fluorescent-lit hallway. The door was unmarked except for the number 307, but it was unlocked. I pushed it open to find a space that looked nothing like the lawyer's office I'd just left. No floor-to-ceiling windows, no modern furniture, just a desk, 2 chairs, a filing cabinet, and walls covered with maps of Los Angeles, marked with pins and strings like something from a crime show. Marcus Webb himself was perched on the edge of his desk, looking at his phone. He was younger than I expected, early 40s maybe, with salt and pepper hair and the kind of lean, watchful build that suggested he spent more time in the field than behind a desk. He wore jeans and a gray t-shirt, nothing that would stand out in a crowd, which I supposed was the point. James Chen, he said, not as a question. You look like hell. Thanks. Sit, we don't have much time. Sam, Ms. Reeves, gave me the basics, but I need details. Your wife's full name, date of birth, vehicle information, phone number, and known associates. He pulled out a tablet as I rattled off the information. Sarah Marie Chen, née Morrison, born July 15, 1992, drives a 2019 silver Honda Civic, license plate 8JFK392, phone number ending in 4847. Known associates? I tried to think. Her parents in Ventura, her sister Emily in San Francisco. Her best friend from college, Melissa, lives in West Hollywood. She has some other friends from her design collective, but I don't know them well. Design collective? She's part of this freelance network. Graphic designers, web developers, photographers. They meet once a month, supposedly, usually at someone's house or a co-working space. You have names? Some. Let me check her Instagram. I pulled up her profile, started scrolling through tagged photos. There's Melissa, I mentioned her. Then there's Jordan. He's a photographer, I think. Alexis, she does web design. And Marcus, I stopped. Marcus. There's a guy named Marcus in the group. Webb looked up from his tablet. Describe him. I zoomed in on a group photo from 3 months ago. Sarah was standing between 2 women and 3 men, all of them smiling at a barbecue somewhere outdoors. The man on her left had his hand on her shoulder. Casual, friendly, the kind of touch you'd share with a colleague. But now, looking at it through this new lens, I could see something else. The way she was leaning slightly toward him. The way their bodies were angled, creating a paired symmetry separate from the rest of the group. Tall, maybe 6'1" or 6'2", Latino, I think. Dark hair, beard. Looks like he works out. I zoomed in more. He's tagged here, Marcus Delgado. Webb took my phone, screenshot the photo, started typing on his tablet. When was this taken? July. 3 months ago, she told me it was a work event. And this Marcus, have you met him? Once, briefly. Sarah introduced us at some gallery opening in the Arts District. Back in June, maybe, or early July. He seemed nice, friendly. Shook my hand, asked me about my work, complimented Sarah's design aesthetic. The memory was taking on new dimensions now, new meanings. They seemed comfortable together, but I thought it was just professional rapport. Webb was already deep into his tablet, pulling up what I assumed was Marcus Delgado's digital footprint. Does he live in LA? I don't know. I never asked. We'll find out. What else can you tell me about your wife's routine? When does she leave the house? When does she come back? I walked him through Sarah's typical day. She usually woke up around 7, made coffee, worked from our apartment until noon or 1. Sometimes she'd go out for client meetings in the afternoon, coffee shops mostly, occasionally restaurants. The pregnancy yoga classes were on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, 6 to 8 or sometimes 9. Weekends varied, but she'd been spending more time with Melissa lately, or so she said. The yoga studio, Webb said. You mentioned it's in Pasadena? That's what she told me. Serenity Wellness. He typed something, waited, frowned. There's no yoga studio by that name in Pasadena. There's a Serenity Day Spa, but they don't offer prenatal classes. She been going to this place for how long? Since August, 2 months. And you never verified the address? I felt my face heat. I trusted her. Yeah. Webb's voice wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. That's what they count on. Trust is a blind spot. People don't question the things they want them to believe. He made another note. I'm going to need to see her phone records. Can you get access to your wireless account? We're on the same plan. I can log in online. Good. Do that tonight and forward everything to this email. He handed me a business card. Plain white, just his name and an email address. Call logs, text logs, data usage, everything. I also need access to your joint bank accounts and credit card statements. Download the last 6 months if you can. What are you looking for? Patterns, hotels, restaurants, cash withdrawals, purchases that don't fit her normal behavior. If she's been conducting an affair, there'll be evidence in the financial records. There always is. He stood. Walked to one of the maps on the wall, a detailed street map of central Los Angeles with various locations marked in red. Your apartment is here, right? Echo Park? Yeah, near the reservoir. He placed a red pin on the map. And she usually takes which route when she goes out? I described her common paths, down Sunset into Silver Lake or south on Glendale into downtown or west toward Los Feliz and Hollywood. He marked each route with different colored strings. Starting tomorrow morning, I'm going to have eyes on your apartment. Discreet surveillance. If she goes anywhere, I'll follow. If she meets anyone, I'll document it. Photos, video, timestamps, locations, everything we need to establish a pattern of behavior. He turned to face me. But I need you to help me. I need you to be my inside source. What do you mean? I need you to pay attention in a way you haven't been. When she's in the shower, check her phone if you can do it without her noticing. When she's asleep, look through her purse, her car, her laptop. People who are having affairs get sloppy. They keep receipts, they save text messages, they take photos they shouldn't. If there's evidence, I need you to find it and document it without her knowing. You want me to spy on my own wife. I want you to protect yourself legally. There's a difference. His expression was neutral, but not unsympathetic. Look, James, I understand this isn't comfortable. I understand it feels wrong. But you need to consider what's at stake here. If the baby is born and your name goes on that birth certificate, you could be on the hook for 18 years of child support for a kid that isn't yours. Is preserving your sense of dignity worth that? Put that way, the answer was obvious. No. Then do what I'm asking. Be careful, be smart, and document everything. He handed me a small device that looked like a thumb drive. This is a recording device. If you think she's going to admit something, if you have a confrontation where the truth might come out, press the button on the side. It'll record audio for up to 6 hours. But James, and this is important, California is a two-party consent state for recording conversations, which means anything you record without her knowledge isn't admissible in court. Then what's the point? The point is, you'll know. You'll have confirmation. And sometimes, in a divorce proceeding, what you know is just as important as what you can prove. People slip up. They reveal things in mediation or in court testimony that contradict what they said in private. And if you have a recording of what they really said, even if it's not admissible, you can use it to impeach their credibility. I took the device, felt its weight in my palm. It seemed impossible that something so small could carry such enormous consequences. One more thing, Webb said. Ms. Reeves probably told you this, but I'm going to emphasize it. You cannot let your wife know that you're suspicious. You cannot change your behavior. You need to be the same husband you were yesterday, the same partner she thinks she has. Because the moment she realizes you know, this whole thing becomes exponentially harder. Understand? I understand. Good. He checked his watch. It's almost 7. You should head home, act normal, kiss her hello, ask about her day. And tomorrow, when she leaves for one of her client meetings or yoga classes, let me know immediately. I'll take it from there. I stood to leave, but stopped at the door. Marcus, the investigator, not the other Marcus. What's your success rate? How often do you find what people are looking for? He smiled, but it was a sad smile. 100%. I always find the truth. The question is never whether I'll find it, James. The question is whether you're ready to accept it once I do. I left his office and took the elevator down to the parking garage, got in my car, and sat there for a long moment before starting the engine. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Where are you? Getting worried. Sorry, I typed back. Work thing took longer than expected. Heading home now. 3 dots appeared, indicating she was typing. Then, Kay, I made pasta. Hope you're hungry. Pasta. She'd made pasta. As if this were a normal Friday night. As if we were a normal couple, with a normal future and a normal child on the way. I drove home through rush hour traffic that was finally starting to ease, through neighborhoods I'd driven through 1,000 times before, but which now seemed strange and unfamiliar, as if the geography had shifted slightly while I wasn't paying attention. The Echo Park apartment was in a converted fourplex on Laguna Avenue, close enough to Sunset Boulevard that you could walk to restaurants and coffee shops, but far enough that the rent was almost affordable. We'd lived there for 2 years, had signed the latest lease renewal just 3 months ago, planning to stay until the baby was old enough that we'd need more space. The baby that wasn't mine. I parked on the street and looked up at our windows on the 2nd floor. The lights were on. I could see Sarah moving around in the kitchen, her silhouette visible through the gauzy curtains we'd hung together last spring. From outside, looking up, we appeared to be exactly what we pretended to be. A young couple preparing for the arrival of their first child, building a life together, secure in their plans and their love. Appearances, I was learning, could be devastatingly false. I climbed the stairs and unlocked the door, stepped into the warm smell of garlic and tomatoes and basil. Sarah was plating pasta at the counter, still wearing the maternity dress from this afternoon's appointment, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked tired but beautiful, the way she always looked these days, glowing with that pregnancy radiance people were always commenting on. Hey, she said, smiling. I was starting to think you'd forgotten about me. Never. I kissed her cheek, tasted the coconut lip balm she always wore. Sorry I'm so late. That work emergency turned into a whole thing. Everything okay? Fine now. Just some last-minute changes to a presentation. The lie came easier than I expected. This smells amazing. We ate dinner at our small table by the window, the one that looked out over the neighborhood toward the reservoir. Sarah told me about her day, about a logo design she was working on for a new coffee roaster, about a funny video she'd seen online, about the baby kicking during her afternoon nap. I listened and nodded and ask questions, playing this role of attentive husband. While inside, I was screaming. How was she doing this? How was she sitting there, touching her belly, talking about our future, when she knew, she had to know, that it was all built on a lie? Dr. Martinez seemed a little off today, she said suddenly, watching me over her wine glass. Did he say something to you when you were in the hallway? My heart stopped. What do you mean? I don't know. He just seemed tense. And when you came back in, you both had this weird energy. She set down her glass. James, if something's wrong with the baby, I need to know. Nothing's wrong with the baby, I said, which was technically true. The baby was fine. Healthy, just not mine. He was just being thorough. You know how doctors are. She studied me for another moment, then nodded and went back to her pasta. But I could see her mind working, see her recalibrating, assessing. She was suspicious, which meant I needed to be more convincing. Actually, I said, he did mention something about the birth plan. He wanted to know if we'd decided on a birthing center or hospital delivery. Oh, her shoulders relaxed slightly. What did you tell him? That we were still deciding, which we are, right? Right. She smiled, and just like that, the moment of tension passed. She believed me, or she wanted to believe me, which amounted to the same thing. I've been reading about water births. They're supposed to be gentler for the baby, easier on the mother. There's a birthing center in Burbank that specializes in them. We spent the rest of dinner discussing birth plans I would never participate in, for a child I would never meet, in a future that no longer existed. And the entire time, I played my part perfectly. After dinner, Sarah went to take a bath. Something she did every night now, said it helped with the swelling in her ankles. I cleaned up the kitchen, loaded the dishwasher, and then, when I heard the bathroom door close and the water start running, I moved quickly. Her purse was on the couch. Her phone was inside, face down. I picked it up carefully, pressed the home button. It was locked, of course, but I knew her passcode. We'd always shared them. One of those gestures of trust that couples make. 61552. Her birthday backwards, I entered it. The phone unlocked. My hands were shaking as I opened her text messages. The most recent conversation was with her sister Emily. Something about baby names. Before that, messages with Melissa about meeting up this weekend. Then messages with her mother about the nursery decor. I scrolled further. There had to be something, some evidence, some proof. And then I found it. A text thread with a contact listed only as M. The most recent message was from earlier today, sent while I was in my meeting with Samantha Reeves. I can't keep doing this. He's getting suspicious. My stomach dropped. The response sent just minutes later, stay calm. We knew this might happen. Stick to the plan. I scrolled up, reading through months of messages. They were careful, never using explicit language, never saying anything directly incriminating, but the intimacy was unmistakable. The way they talked to each other, the casual endearments, the inside jokes. And then, buried in a thread from July, a message that made everything crystalline clear. Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Can't wait until I can tell everyone you're mine. And Sarah's response, soon, once the baby comes and everything is settled, I promise. I screenshot everything, sent the images to my own phone, then deleted the sent messages from her text log. My hands were steadier now, operating on autopilot, functioning despite the storm of emotion threatening to overwhelm me. There were more messages in a different thread. This one with D discussing money. Did you get the cash? D asked in August. And Sarah's response, yes, $3,000. That should cover the next few months. $3,000. I thought about the cash withdrawals she'd been making, the ones she'd claimed were for maternity clothes and baby items. She'd been receiving money from someone. From D, from whoever he was. I heard the bathwater stop. I quickly closed out of the messages, set her phone back in her purse exactly as I'd found it, and moved to the couch. When Sarah emerged from the bathroom 10 minutes later, wrapped in a towel with her hair dripping, I was scrolling through sports scores on my own phone, the picture of a husband who had nothing to hide. You okay? She asked, toweling her hair. You're quiet tonight. Just tired, long day. She sat next to me, rested her damp head on my shoulder. I'm tired too. This pregnancy is exhausting. She placed my hand on her belly, and I felt the baby move, a solid kick against my palm. Feel that? She's active tonight. She? I said. You think it's a girl? I don't know, just a feeling. She yawned. I'm going to bed. You coming? In a bit. I need to finish some work stuff. She kissed the top of my head and disappeared into the bedroom. I waited until I heard her breathing even out, until I was certain she was asleep, before I opened my phone and pulled up the screenshots I'd taken. Then I sent everything to Marcus Webb with a message. Found her text messages. She's definitely having an affair. The contact is listed as M, might be Marcus Delgado. There's also someone named D who's been giving her money. Need to identify both. His response came 30 seconds later. Good work. This is exactly what we need. Get some sleep. Tomorrow I start surveillance. Sleep. As if sleep were possible. As if I could close my eyes and not see those text messages, not imagine Sarah in someone else's arms, not feel the weight of betrayal settling into my bones like lead. I stayed on the couch until 3 in the morning, until exhaustion finally pulled me under. And even then, my dreams were full of ultrasound images and text message threads and the sound of Sarah's voice saying, "Soon, I promise, soon." Saturday morning arrived with the kind of aggressive sunshine that Los Angeles does best. Sharp and unforgiving, the kind of light that doesn't allow for shadows or ambiguity. I woke on the couch to find Sarah already awake, moving around the kitchen in her bathrobe, making coffee and humming something I didn't recognize. "You slept out here?" she asked when she noticed I was awake. "Didn't want to wake you. I was up late working." The lies were coming more easily now, each one requiring less effort than the last. "What time is it?" "Almost 9. I was going to let you sleep, but I need to head out soon. I'm meeting Melissa for brunch, and then we're going to look at some baby boutiques in Los Feliz." Perfect. I sat up, stretched, tried to look sleepy and unconcerned. "Sounds fun. What time will you be back?" "Probably around 3 or 4, unless we decide to catch a movie or something." She poured herself decaf coffee, one of the few pregnancy restrictions she actually followed, and sat at the kitchen table. "What are you going to do today?" "Errands, grocery store. Maybe hit the gym." I pulled out my phone, texted Marcus Webb under the table. "She's leaving around 9:30. Says she's meeting friend for brunch, then shopping in Los Feliz." His response was immediate. "On it. I'll be in position in 15 minutes." Sarah finished her coffee, disappeared into the bedroom to get dressed. I listened to the sounds of her routine, the closet door opening, the dresser drawers sliding, the bathroom fan clicking on. Familiar domestic sounds that had once been comforting and now felt like nails on a chalkboard. She emerged 20 minutes later wearing black leggings, an oversized sweater, and ankle boots. Her hair was down, her makeup subtle but carefully applied. She looked beautiful, and I hated that I still noticed, still felt that automatic surge of attraction even knowing what I knew. "You look nice," I said, because that's what I would have said yesterday. "Thanks." She grabbed her purse, her keys, paused at the door. "James, are we okay?" "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You've seemed distant since the doctor's appointment yesterday. If something's bothering you, you can talk to me." The audacity of it. Her standing there, pregnant with another man's child, asking if I wanted to talk about what was bothering me, was almost funny. Almost. "We're fine," I said. "Just stressed about work and the baby coming. Normal stuff." She nodded, but her eyes were searching my face, looking for cracks in the facade. "Okay, well, I'll see you this afternoon." I waited exactly 30 seconds after she left before texting Marcus. "She just left. Silver Honda, heading west on Sunset. I see her. I'm 3 cars back. We'll update soon." I spent the next hour doing exactly what Marcus had told me to do, searching. I went through Sarah's side of the closet, checking pockets and coat linings. I found nothing except old receipts and loose change. I searched her car next, the one she'd left behind because she'd taken an Uber, which was immediately suspicious. Why would she take an Uber to brunch with Melissa when she had a perfectly functional car? The Honda was neat, almost obsessively so. She'd always been tidy, but this felt different, deliberate. No trash in the console, no forgotten items in the back seat, nothing in the glove box except the registration and insurance documents. It was too clean. The car of someone who was being careful not to leave evidence. But people always miss something. I popped the trunk. At first glance, it was empty except for the spare tire and a reusable grocery bag. But then I noticed something wedged under the carpet that lined the trunk floor. A corner of paper, barely visible. I pulled up the carpet carefully. Underneath was a manila envelope, unsealed. Inside were credit card statements. Not from our joint accounts, but from a card I'd never seen before. American Express, in Sarah's name only, with an address I didn't recognize. A P.O. box in Silver Lake. I pulled out the statements and started reading. The charges went back 6 months, starting in April, shortly after she'd gotten pregnant. Hotels, the Line in Koreatown, the Ace in downtown, the Proper in Santa Monica. Restaurants, expensive places, the kind we never went to together because we were saving money. Nordstrom, $800 for items purchased in June. Sephora, $234. Victoria's Secret, $412. Lingerie. She'd been buying lingerie. The most recent statement, dated October, showed a charge from a medical clinic I didn't recognize. Westside Women's Health, $485 for services unspecified. My phone buzzed. Marcus. She didn't meet her friend. She's at an apartment complex in Silver Lake. Historic brick building, 6 units. She was buzzed in immediately. Someone was expecting her. I typed back, "Can you get photos?" Already on it, sitting across the street with a telephoto lens. If she comes out with someone, you'll know. I took pictures of every credit card statement, every receipt, every transaction. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, replaced the trunk carpet, closed the car. Inside the apartment, I logged into our wireless provider's website using the password I'd set up years ago, another gesture of shared trust that now felt like naivete. Downloaded 6 months of call logs and text records for Sarah's number. The file was enormous, hundreds of pages, but Marcus would know how to parse it. I was uploading everything to the email address Marcus had given me when my phone rang. Samantha Reeves. "James," she said without preamble, "Marcus briefed me on what you found. The credit card statements are good, very good. They establish a pattern of deceptive behavior and hidden financial activity, but we need more. We need to identify who she's seeing and establish a definitive timeline. He's watching her right now. She's at an apartment in Silver Lake. Good. If he can photograph her with another man in a compromising situation, we can move forward with filing. But James, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Are you prepared for what comes next?" "What do you mean?" "I mean that once we file for divorce, once we serve her with papers, there's no going back. Your marriage is over. Whatever relationship you thought you had will be irreparably damaged. Even if you're right about everything, even if she's been lying to you for months, the act of filing will change everything forever. Are you ready for that?" I looked around the apartment, at the couch where we'd watched movies together, at the kitchen table where we'd had breakfast 1,000 times, at the closed door to the nursery where a crib waited for a child I would never meet. Was I ready? "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." "Then here's what I need you to do. Stay calm. Stay present. If she comes home and wants to talk, let her talk. Don't accuse her of anything. Don't reveal what you know, but listen. Sometimes people confess when they think they're safe. If she tells you something, anything, that confirms the affair, I want you to use the recording device Marcus gave you. Can you do that?" "I can do that." "Good. I'm drafting the divorce petition right now. I'll have it ready by Monday morning. In the meantime, Marcus is going to establish surveillance patterns, document everything, and build our case. Your job is to act normal and wait. Wait. As if waiting were something I could do. As if I could sit in this apartment, surrounded by the life we'd built, and just wait while the truth assembled itself into something actionable." But I said yes, because what else could I say? The afternoon crawled by. I went to the grocery store because I'd told Sarah I would, because I needed to maintain the illusion. I bought things we didn't need, produce that would go bad, bread that would grow stale, milk that would expire. I was shopping for a future that didn't exist, and the absurdity of it nearly made me laugh right there in the dairy aisle. Marcus texted me updates throughout the day. 7 p.m. Still inside, no movement. 2:23 p.m. Can see 2 shadows through the window. 3rd floor, corner unit. They're not just talking. 3:15. She's leaving. Ordered an Uber. Should be home in 20 minutes. I was unloading groceries when Sarah walked in, shopping bags in hand, her face flushed. "Hey," she said, slightly breathless. "Traffic was terrible. How was your day?" "Fine, got the groceries, hit the gym." I gestured at her bags. "Find anything good?" "Yeah, actually. Melissa found this amazing vintage store, and they had these adorable onesies. And we couldn't resist." She pulled out tiny clothes. Soft yellows and greens, gender neutral. each one making my chest tighten. Aren't they precious? Very cute. She came over, kissed my cheek. She smelled like perfume I didn't recognize. Something expensive, something she definitely hadn't been wearing when she left. I'm exhausted. I think I'm going to take a nap before dinner. Good idea. I'll wake you in a couple hours. She disappeared into the bedroom and I pulled out my phone. Texted Marcus. Did you get photos? Better, got video. She was with a man, tall, Latino, matches the description of Marcus Delgado. I caught them on the street when they thought no one was watching. They kissed, not a friendly kiss, not a colleague kiss. I got everything. Send it to me, sending to Sam instead. This is evidence now. You'll see it eventually, but right now, the less you know about what I captured, the better. Trust me on this. I did trust him. I had to, because at this point, he and Samantha Reeves were the only people in my life who weren't lying to me. The video arrived in my inbox that evening, forwarded by Samantha with a note. This is conclusive. We can file on Monday. I watched it 3 times, even though once would have been enough. Sarah standing outside a brick building in Silver Lake, wearing the clothes she'd worn this morning. A man emerging from the building, tall, dark-haired, the photographer from her design collective, the man I'd met once and thought nothing of, Marcus Delgado. She said something to him I couldn't hear. He laughed. Then he pulled her close, his hands on her waist, on the swell of her pregnant belly, on my child that wasn't my child, and kissed her. Long and slow and intimate. The kiss of 2 people who'd done this before, many times before. When they pulled apart, his hand stayed on her belly, protective, possessive, the gesture of a father. I closed the video and sat in the dark living room, while Sarah slept in the next room, while the baby that wasn't mine kicked and turned inside her, while my marriage died its quiet death. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Webb. Got an ID on the apartment. It's registered to Marcus Delgado. He's lived there for 3 years. Works as a commercial photographer, primarily fashion and lifestyle. Never been married, no kids. Clean financial record. I'm running a full background check. Should have more by tomorrow. Then a minute later, I also traced the D from the text messages. David Morrison. That's her father. He's been giving her money, $3,000 in August, another $2,000 in September. I'm betting her family knows about the affair. Her father. Her own father had been helping her hide this. I thought about Richard Morrison, the mild-mannered retired English teacher who'd welcomed me into his family, who'd called me son at our wedding, who'd helped us move into this apartment. He'd known. He'd known that his daughter was pregnant with another man's child, and he'd helped her conceal it. The betrayal had layers, I was discovering. Each revelation opened up new depths of deception, new questions about how long this had been going on and how many people had been complicit. Sunday morning, Sarah wanted to go to the farmer's market. She was in a good mood, better than she'd been in weeks, chattering about baby names and nursery colors and whether we should get a bassinet or just put the crib in our bedroom for the first few months. I went along, smiled, bought overpriced organic vegetables and artisanal bread, held her hand as we walked through the stalls, her belly prominent between us, a constant reminder of the lie we were living. I've been thinking, she said as we stopped at a flower stand, about names. If it's a girl, what about Sophia? And if it's a boy, Alexander? Those were the names I'd been thinking, the ones I'd mentioned to Dr. Martinez just 2 days ago. Had she been listening to me talk about baby names while planning a future with someone else? Had she been that cruel? Those are nice names, I said neutrally. You don't like them? I didn't say that. She studied me, that same searching look from yesterday. James, seriously, what's going on? You've been weird all weekend. If you're having second thoughts about being a father, I'm not having second thoughts. That at least was true. I couldn't have second thoughts about something that was never going to happen. I'm just processing. It's a big change. I know, but we're in this together, right? She squeezed my hand. You and me and baby makes 3. You and me and Marcus makes 3, I thought. You and me and a lie makes 3. But I smiled and said, right, together. We spent the rest of Sunday in this bizarre performance of normalcy, cooking dinner together, watching a movie, discussing plans for the upcoming week. She had a client presentation on Tuesday. I had a project deadline on Wednesday. We needed to schedule another doctor's appointment for 2 weeks out. Actually, Sarah said as we were getting ready for bed, I was thinking about finding a new doctor. My blood froze. Wait, what? Why? I don't know. Dr. Martinez just seemed off on Friday, and I've been reading about this midwife practice in Santa Monica that does home births. I think I'd prefer something more intimate, more natural. She wanted to change doctors because Dr. Martinez had been off, because he'd discovered the truth and she'd sensed it somehow. Had that predator instinct that cheaters develop, that sensitivity to being caught. Whatever you think is best, I said carefully, but I like Dr. Martinez. He's been great so far. I know, but it's my body, James. My choice. There was an edge to her voice now, a defensiveness that confirmed my suspicion. She knew, maybe not exactly what Dr. Martinez had told me, but she knew something had shifted. Of course, your choice. I climbed into bed next to her, turned off the light. We can talk about it more this week. She rolled over, her back to me, one hand resting on her belly. Good night. Good night. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, feeling the space between us that had nothing to do with the physical inches separating our bodies. Tomorrow, Samantha would file the divorce papers. Tomorrow, Marcus would continue his surveillance. Tomorrow, everything would begin to unravel in ways Sarah couldn't yet imagine. Tomorrow, she would learn that I knew. But tonight, in this bed, in this apartment, in this life that was already gone, I had to wait. I had to be patient. I had to pretend that everything was fine while the evidence accumulated, while the case built itself, while the truth prepared to detonate. If you've ever had to lie next to someone you once loved, someone who betrayed you in ways you're still discovering, you know that feeling. That particular torture of proximity without trust, of intimacy without honesty. Your body remembers what it felt like to hold them, even as your mind catalogs their deceptions. Your heart wants to believe the lie, even as your eyes finally see the truth. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there watching the ceiling, counting the hours until morning, until I could escape the suffocating pretense of this bed and this marriage and this life built on sand. At 3 a.m., Sarah's phone buzzed on her nightstand. I heard it in the dark, a text message arriving, briefly illuminating her face with its blue glow. She reached for it immediately, read something, typed a response. The light from the screen showed me her expression, soft, tender, the way she used to look at me. Then she set the phone down and went back to sleep, secure in her deception, comfortable in her lies. I waited until I heard her breathing even out. Then I picked up my own phone and texted Marcus Webb. How fast can you identify who just texted her at 3 a.m.? His response came 2 minutes later. I have her phone records. Every call, every text, every data transmission for the last 6 months. Give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, Marcus Delgado. The message said, can't sleep, thinking about you and our daughter. Soon. She responded, I know, me too. I love you. Our daughter. They'd already decided it was a girl. They'd already established ownership. They were already building their future, using my present as scaffolding. I got out of bed carefully, went to the living room, closed the door. Then I called Marcus Webb, not caring that it was 3 in the morning. He answered on the second ring. You saw the text. Our daughter, I said. He called the baby our daughter. I know. I've been reading through the phone records all night. James, it's worse than we thought. They've been together for over a year, since before you got married. The pregnancy was planned. They discuss it explicitly in texts from January. She got pregnant deliberately. The room tilted. What? She wanted a baby. He wanted a baby. But he's not in a position to provide for a child. His photography business is struggling. He's got debt. He's barely making rent. So they came up with a plan. She'd stay married to you, have the baby, let you believe it was yours. Once the child was born and you were legally on the hook for child support, she'd file for divorce. You'd pay for everything while he got to be the real father. You're saying this was premeditated, that she got pregnant with his child while married to me deliberately as a way to extract money. That's exactly what I'm saying. And her family is in on it. Her father's been giving her money to help with expenses she couldn't explain to you. Her sister knows, her mother knows. This was a coordinated deception. I couldn't breathe. The apartment felt too small, the walls too close. How soon can we file? Samantha has the papers ready. We can serve her tomorrow if you want. I want. James, are you sure once we do this, she's going to know you know? She's going to lawyer up. This is going to get ugly. It's already ugly, I said. Let's just make it honest. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. I woke before Sarah, made coffee with hands that didn't shake because I was beyond shaking now. I'd passed through shock and landed somewhere colder, somewhere harder, somewhere that felt almost like relief. Sarah found me on the couch, laptop open, pretending to work. You're up early, she said, yawning. Couldn't sleep? Big presentation today. Wanted to get a head start. She poured herself decaf, settled at the kitchen table with her phone. I watched her scroll through messages, saw her smile at something, type a response. Was it him? Was she texting Marcus Delgado right now, planning their future while sitting in the apartment I paid for? I have that client meeting this afternoon, she said without looking up. The coffee roaster in Pasadena might run late. The one you mentioned last week? Yeah, they want to see 3 logo concepts and discuss brand strategy. Could take a couple hours. She was lying. I knew she was lying. There was no client meeting in Pasadena. There was only Marcus Delgado's apartment in Silver Lake, where she'd been Saturday, where she'd be again today. Sounds interesting, I said. Hope it goes well. She looked at me then, something flickering across her face. Suspicion, guilt. You're being weird again, just focused on work. Right. She finished her coffee, stood to leave. Okay, well, I'll see you tonight. Love you. Love you too. I said, and the words felt like ash in my mouth. She left at 10. At 10:15, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find a woman in her 50s, professional, but not intimidating, holding a manila envelope. James Chen? Yes. You've been served. She handed me the envelope, then handed me a second one. These are divorce papers. Please ensure your wife, Sarah Chen, receives these at her earliest convenience. I will. She nodded once and left. I stood in the doorway holding the evidence of my marriage's end, feeling strangely nothing. The envelope was surprisingly light. You'd think the death of a marriage would weigh more. I opened it. Inside was the petition for dissolution of marriage that Samantha had drafted. Grounds irreconcilable differences. Petitioner, James David Chen. Respondent, Sarah Marie Chen. Attached exhibits. Credit card statements showing hidden financial activity, phone records establishing a pattern of deception, photographic evidence of adultery. It was all there, documented, irrefutable. My phone buzzed. Samantha Reeves. Papers are filed with the court. She needs to be served within 30 days, but I recommend doing it sooner. The longer she's unaware, the more opportunity she has to hide assets or establish a counter-narrative. Your call. I typed back, how do I serve her? You can hand them to her personally, use a process server, or have a neutral third party deliver them. Given the circumstances, I'd recommend a process server for legal protection. I can arrange it. No, I typed. I'll do it. Because I needed to see her face. I needed to watch her realize that I knew that the game was over, that she'd lost. I spent the day preparing. Not physically, there was nothing to prepare, but mentally, rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd say it. Would I be calm, angry, cold? I practiced different versions of myself, trying them on like masks, trying to find the one that fit this moment. At 4:30 p.m., I got a text from Marcus Webb. She just arrived at the apartment in Silver Lake. He met her at the door. They're inside now. Perfect. I waited 30 minutes, then drove to Silver Lake. Marcus had sent me the address, a beautiful brick building from the 1920s, one of those historical structures that survived the various waves of Los Angeles development. 6 units, Art Deco details, probably rent-controlled, which explained how a struggling photographer could afford it. I parked across the street 3 cars down from where Marcus Webb was sitting in an unmarked sedan with tinted windows. He gave me a small nod as I passed. I didn't acknowledge him. The building directory showed Delgado in Unit 3B. I pressed the buzzer. Yeah? A man's voice? His voice. Delivery. I said, leave it downstairs. Requires signature. A pause, then the door buzzed. I pushed it open and took the stairs to the 3rd floor. Unit 3B was at the end of the hall, the corner unit Marcus had mentioned. I could hear voices inside, Sarah's laugh, light and genuine in a way I hadn't heard in months. I knocked. Marcus Delgado opened the door. He was exactly as I remembered. Tall, fit, confident. He wore jeans and a t-shirt, was barefoot, looked completely at home. His expression shifted when he saw me, from casual confusion to slow recognition to something like fear. James, I said. Marcus. Behind him, I could see into the apartment. It was small but nicely furnished, exposed brick, large windows, art on the walls. And there, on the couch, was Sarah. Her shoes were off, her feet tucked under her, a glass of water on the coffee table. She looked comfortable. She looked happy. She looked absolutely horrified when she saw me. James, she gasped, struggling to stand with her pregnant belly weighing her down. What are you? How did you? I need to talk to you, I said calmly. Both of you. Marcus moved slightly, positioning himself between me and Sarah, protective. I think you should leave. I'll leave, but first, Sarah needs this. I held out the manila envelope. Divorce papers. You've been served. The hallway was silent except for the sound of someone's television bleeding through the walls, a game show with canned laughter. Sarah's face had gone white. What? Divorce papers, Aman, I repeated. Filed this morning. You have 30 days to respond. She took the envelope with shaking hands, opened it, pulled out the papers. I watched her read the first page, then flip to the attached exhibits. Watched the moment she realized exactly what I knew, exactly what I had. The credit card statements, I said conversationally as if we were discussing the weather. Those were particularly enlightening. The Ace Hotel in February, the Proper in May, Victoria's Secret in June. I especially liked the charge from Westside Women's Health. What was that for, by the way? Just routine pregnancy care or something more specific? She couldn't speak. She just stared at the papers, her mouth opening and closing. Marcus found his voice. You need to leave, now! I will. But I want Sarah to understand something first. I looked at her directly, made sure she was seeing me, really seeing me. I know everything. I know about the affair. I know the baby isn't mine. I know you planned this, that you got pregnant deliberately while married to me. I know your father's been giving you money. I know your whole family is in on it. I have phone records, text messages, photographs, credit card statements, surveillance footage. I have everything. James, I can explain, she started. Don't. My voice was sharp now, cutting. Don't insult me by trying to explain, so I'm not interested in your rationalizations. I'm interested in protecting myself legally, which is exactly what I'm doing. Marcus stepped forward. You're harassing her. She's pregnant. You need to go. I laughed. Actually laughed. She's pregnant. Yes. 7 months pregnant with your child. Congratulations, by the way. I hope you're prepared for what comes next. What's that supposed to mean? Sarah's voice was small, frightened. It means I'm not paying for your child. It means I'm not signing any birth certificates. It means I'm not playing the role you cast me in. I pulled out my phone, pulled up one of the text message screenshots I'd taken. Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. You sent that to him in July, Sarah, while I was assembling the crib, while I was at every doctor's appointment, holding your hand, playing the devoted husband. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. You calculated the exact amount of hurt that would benefit you most. You planned this entire deception and you executed it flawlessly, almost flawlessly. You just made one mistake. What mistake? You went to the wrong doctor. Dr. Martinez has been doing ultrasounds for 23 years. He knows what to look for. He saw the facial structure, the genetic markers. He knew the baby wasn't mine before I did. She sank back onto the couch, still holding the divorce papers. Marcus moved to sit next to her, his arm around her shoulders. The gesture would have been comforting if it wasn't so damning. His immediate, automatic protectiveness over her and the child they'd created together. How long? I asked, though I already knew. How long have you been sleeping with him? She didn't answer. I'll tell you, I continued. 13 months. Since August of last year. 4 months before we got married. You were sleeping with him while we were planning our wedding, while we were writing our vows, while I was promising to love you forever. It wasn't like that, she whispered. Then what was it like? Please enlighten me. I'm genuinely curious about the mental gymnastics required to justify this level of betrayal. Marcus stood up. That's enough. You've served the papers. Now leave. I'll leave, I said. But first, I want to make something crystal clear to both of you. You're not getting a penny from me. Not for child support, not for medical expenses, not for anything. I will fight you in court with every resource I have. And I will win because I have evidence that this child was conceived through deliberate fraud. So if you were planning on my income supporting your little family, think again. We don't need your money, Marcus said, his jaw tight. Good, because you're not getting it. I looked at Sarah one last time. I loved you. I would have been a good father to that child, even knowing what I know now, if you'd just been honest with me. But you weren't. You chose this. You chose deception. And now you get to live with the consequences. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Sarah? Your father's money, the $3,000 in August, the $2,000 in September? That's going to look really bad in court. Conspiracy to commit fraud is a serious charge. You might want to get ahead of that. I left them there, Sarah crying, Marcus trying to comfort her, the divorce papers scattered on the coffee table between them, and walked down the stairs feeling lighter than I had in days. Outside, Marcus Webb was leaning against his car. How'd it go? He asked. About as well as could be expected. You recorded it? I pulled out the small device he'd given me, pressed stop. Every word. Good. Samantha will want to hear it. He paused. How do you feel? Honestly, I feel like I can breathe for the first time in 7 months. He nodded. That's normal. You've been living in a pressure cooker. Now the valve's released. He clapped me on the shoulder. Go home, get some rest. Tomorrow we start preparing for her response. But I didn't go home. I couldn't. Home was the apartment I'd shared with Sarah, the place where we'd built our lives, where every object and memory was now contaminated by betrayal. Instead, I drove to the beach, to Malibu, to that spot where I'd proposed to her 2 years ago. The sun was setting, painting the sky in those impossible colors that had made her gasp with delight. Golden hour, her favorite time of day. I sat on the sand and watched the sun sink into the Pacific, watched the light fade, watched the day die the way my marriage had died. Slowly, then all at once. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Sarah. Please, can we talk? There are things you don't understand. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I blocked the number and threw my phone in my bag. There was nothing left to understand. I had all the answers I needed. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I expected. Samantha Reeves filed an emergency motion to prevent Sarah from listing me as the father on the birth certificate, citing fraud and supported by Dr. Martinez's affidavit and the mountain of evidence we'd accumulated. The judge granted it within 48 hours. Sarah, predictably, hired her own lawyer, a shark named Patricia Chen, no relation, who specialized in defending women in contested divorces. She filed a counter motion arguing that I was the presumptive father due to marriage and that the evidence I'd presented was circumstantial and invasive of my wife's privacy. But we had more than circumstantial evidence. We had Marcus Delgado himself. He contacted me through Samantha's office 3 days after I'd served the papers. Said he wanted to talk. Said there were things I deserved to know. Against Samantha's advice, I agreed to meet him. We met at a coffee shop in Los Feliz, neutral territory. He looked exhausted. I saw circles under his eyes. His usual confidence replaced it with something raw. He bought us both coffee and sat across from me at a small table in the back. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said without preamble. I'm not here asking for that. I just think you deserve to hear the truth. The whole truth, not just what the lawyers are arguing about. I'm listening. He wrapped his hands around his coffee cup, stared into it like it might contain answers. Sarah and I met 2 years ago at a design conference in San Diego. We were both speakers. She was presenting on brand identity. I was doing a workshop on commercial photography. We got talking after our sessions, went for drinks, talked until 3 a.m. about art and creativity in life. I knew she was married, she knew I knew, and nothing happened that night. But something happened eventually. Yeah, we kept in touch, started collaborating professionally. She'd hire me for photo shoots for her design clients. I'd refer people to her for branding work. It was professional for months. And then, he paused, then it wasn't. When? August last year, there was a work trip to San Francisco, a conference. She was there, I was there, and we both had too much wine at a networking event. We slept together. It was supposed to be a one-time mistake, but it wasn't. No. And I'm not making excuses here, just explaining, what we had was real. The connection, the chemistry, the way we understood each other. Sarah said she'd married you for stability, for security, for all the practical reasons people get married. But what she felt with me was different, deeper. I felt anger flare in my chest. So this is the part where you try to make me feel better by suggesting my wife never really loved me? That's your truth? No, that's not what I'm saying. He looked at me directly. She did love you, James, in her own way, but she loved me differently, and she got pregnant with my child because we both wanted a family and she didn't think you'd give her one. What? We were trying to have a baby. That was the plan. Your plan, not necessarily hers. She told me, and again, I'm just telling you what she said, that you kept talking about waiting until you had more money saved, waiting until your career was more stable, waiting until you could buy a house. She was 31, she wanted a child, and you kept making her wait. So she decided to have someone else's child and pass it off as mine. She decided to have my child, yes. And she convinced herself, convinced both of us, that you'd never know, that the timing would work out, that the baby would look enough like both of you that no one would question it. He ran his hand through his hair. We were stupid. We were selfish. We were wrong, but we weren't malicious. We genuinely believed we were creating a situation where everyone got what they wanted. Except I didn't want to raise another man's child under false pretenses. I know that now, but at the time, in the middle of it, it felt possible, justified even. He shook his head. I'm not proud of any of this. And I'm not asking you to understand or approve. I'm just giving you context. Because I think you deserve to know that this wasn't just Sarah being cruel. This was two people who fell in love and made terrible decisions trying to figure out how to build a life together. At my expense. Yes, at your expense. He met my eyes again. And I'm sorry for that. Truly, deeply sorry. If I could go back and make different choices, I would. But I can't. All I can do now is try to do right by Sarah and our daughter. Your daughter, I said. Not mine. I want to be clear about that. I know. That's actually why I wanted to meet with you. I want to officially acknowledge paternity. I want my name on the birth certificate. I don't want there to be any legal confusion about who this child's father is. I stared at him. You're willing to do that? Of course, she's my daughter. I'm going to take responsibility for her, financially and otherwise. Sarah's been worried that you'd fight for some kind of custody or parental rights. But if I establish paternity now, before the baby's born, that cuts off any legal claim you might have. I don't want custody. I don't want parental rights. I want out. Then we're aligned. He pulled out a document from his bag. This is a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity. I've already signed it. If you're willing to sign it too, acknowledging that you're not the biological father, it should streamline the divorce and protect both of us from future legal complications. I took the document, read through it carefully. It was exactly what he'd said. A legal declaration that Marcus Delgado was the biological father of the child Sarah was carrying, and that I, James Chen, was not. By signing, I'd be waiving any paternal rights or obligations. If I sign this, I said slowly, and Sarah tries to come after me for child support later, she can't. This document legally establishes that I'm the father. You're free and clear. I looked at him, at this man who'd destroyed my marriage, who'd been sleeping with my wife, who'd planned a child with her while she was still wearing my ring. I should have hated him. Part of me did hate him. But sitting there, watching him take responsibility, watching him step up in a way that made my exit easier, I mostly just felt tired. You really love her? I asked. Yes. And you're prepared for what this means? The judgment, the complications, the fact that everyone's going to know your relationship started as an affair? We'll deal with it. His jaw was set, determined. Sarah and I are planning to get married after your divorce is finalized. We've already put a deposit down on a bigger apartment, one with room for a nursery. My photography business is picking up, and she's got steady design work. We'll be okay. And her family, they support this? They do. They weren't thrilled at first, but they've come around. Her dad especially, he really loves Sarah, wants her to be happy, even if her happiness came from blowing up her marriage. Even then. I pulled out a pen, signed the document, dated it, handed it back to him. I hope you know what you're getting into. What do you mean? I mean that if she could lie to me for 13 months, if she could plan a deception this elaborate, what makes you think she won't do it to you someday? His expression tightened. Because I'm not you. Because what we have is different. That's what I thought too. I stood to leave. Good luck, Marcus. You're going to need it. I left him sitting there with his coffee and his paternity acknowledgement and his certainty that their love was somehow special, somehow exempt from the consequences of how it began. The divorce was finalized on January 8th, 3 months after I'd discovered the truth. The proceedings had been brutal. Sarah's lawyer tried to argue that I owed her spousal support despite the affair, claimed I'd been controlling and financially abusive. But Samantha dismantled every argument with the precision of a surgeon, presented evidence of Sarah's hidden credit card, her secret spending, her calculated deception. In the end, the judge granted me everything I'd asked for. No spousal support, no child support, no financial obligations of any kind. The marriage was dissolved as if it had never existed. Sarah kept her car and her personal belongings. I kept mine. We split the security deposit on the apartment. It took 15 minutes to dismantle what had taken 4 years to build. I moved out of Echo Park the week the divorce was finalized, took a one-bedroom in Culver City near my office, threw out most of our shared belongings. Couldn't stand to look at them, couldn't separate the memories from the lies. Started over with IKEA furniture and blank walls and a future that was terrifying in its openness. Sarah's baby, their baby, was born on February 23rd, a girl, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, Sophia Grace Delgado. I knew because her sister Emily, who I'd always liked, sent me a message. I know you probably don't care, but I thought you should know Sarah had the baby. She's healthy. They're both healthy. I'm sorry for everything that happened. You deserve better. I wrote back, thank you for letting me know. I'm glad they're okay. And I was glad. Despite everything, despite the betrayal and the lies and the months of emotional devastation, I was genuinely glad that the baby was healthy. She was innocent in all of this. She didn't ask to be conceived in deception, didn't ask to be the instrument of her mother's fraud. She deserved a good life, even if I wouldn't be part of it. 3 months after Sophia was born, I was having coffee with a friend from work, someone who knew nothing about my divorce, who I'd been carefully avoiding because I didn't want to explain, when I saw them. Sarah and Marcus, pushing a stroller through the grove, laughing at something, looking happy, looking like a family. Sarah saw me at the same moment I saw her. Our eyes met across the crowded plaza. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she gave me a small nod, acknowledgement maybe, or apology, or just recognition that we'd both survived the wreckage. I nodded back. Then I turned away and continued my conversation as if I'd seen nothing, as if my chest wasn't tight, as if the past wasn't sitting 30 feet away wearing a different face. My friend noticed my distraction. You okay? Fine, I said. Just thought I saw someone I used to know. Used to know? Yeah, from a different life. 'Cause that's what it felt like. My marriage to Sarah existed in some parallel universe that I could remember but no longer access. The James Chen who trusted her, who'd gone to prenatal appointments and assembled cribs and imagined a future with her, was gone, dead. Replaced by someone harder, more cautious, less willing to take people at face value. I dated casually for a while after the divorce, but nothing serious. Couldn't bring myself to be vulnerable again. Couldn't shake the feeling that anyone I got close to was just waiting for the right moment to betray me. My therapist, yes, I got a therapist because you don't survive this kind of trauma without professional help, told me it was normal, this hypervigilance, this protective distance I kept. She said it would fade with time. She was right mostly. A year after the divorce was finalized, I met Emma. She was a paralegal at a law firm I'd started working with, smart and funny and refreshingly direct. We went for drinks after a particularly long contract negotiation, talked until the bar closed, exchanged numbers with the understanding that this was probably a bad idea. She'd just gotten out of a relationship. I was clearly still dealing with my own damage. But sometimes bad ideas are the only ones worth pursuing. On our third date, I told her everything. About Sarah, about the baby that wasn't mine, about the ultrasound and the investigation and the divorce. I laid it all out, every ugly detail, waiting for her to make an excuse and leave. Instead, she said, "That's really fucked up." Yeah, and you handled it about as well as anyone could. Better than most people would, honestly. I don't know about that. I do. Most people would have fallen apart, would have gotten vindictive, would have let it destroy them. But you protected yourself legally. You gathered evidence. You did it by the book. That takes real strength. She reached across the tape table, took my hand. I'm not going to lie to you, James. I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not or hide parts of my life from you. If we're going to do this, whatever this is, we're going to do it honestly. Deal? Deal. We moved in together 8 months later, got engaged a year after that, married in a small ceremony in her parents' backyard in Oregon, with just immediate family and a few close friends. No elaborate wedding, no grand gestures, just a commitment made by two people who'd both been burned before and were choosing to try again anyway. Sarah sent a card. I don't know how she got our address, probably through mutual acquaintances. Los Angeles being smaller than people think, but it arrived 2 weeks after the wedding. Inside was a handwritten note. James, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I respect that, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry for the pain I caused you. What I did was wrong, and no explanation or justification can change that. You deserved honesty, and I gave you lies. You deserved trust, and I gave you betrayal. I hope you found happiness. I hope you found someone who treats you the way I should have. You deserve that, Sarah. Emma found me reading it, saw my expression. Is that from her? Yeah. What are you going to do with it? I thought about it for a moment. Thought about keeping it or throwing it away or sending some kind of response. Then I handed it to Emma. Your call. She read it, considered, then walked it to the fireplace where we had our first fire of the season going. She held the card over the flames, looked at me for confirmation. I nodded. The card caught fire, curled and blackened, turned to ash. We watched it burn together. Feel better? Emma asked. Not worse, she laughed, pulled me close. Good enough. That was 3 years ago. Emma and I now have a son, actually mine, DNA test confirmed, not because I didn't trust her, but because some traumas leave marks that don't fully heal. His name is Alexander, the name I'd once imagined giving to a child that wasn't mine. He's 16 months old, has my eyes and Emma's smile, and he's perfect in a way that makes my chest hurt with gratitude. Sometimes I think about Sarah, about Sophia, who must be 4 now, about Marcus Delgado, and whether they're still together, whether their love survived the transition from secret affair to public relationship, about whether Sarah ever regrets her choices, whether she thinks about the future we didn't have. Mostly, though, I don't think about them at all. Because here's what I learned from that ultrasound, from that moment when Dr. Martinez showed me the truth and everything changed. Betrayal is a door that only opens one way. Once you walk through it, once you see what's on the other side, you can never go back to not knowing. The life you had before, the trust, the innocence, the belief that people mean what they say, that's gone forever, but there's freedom in that loss. Freedom from living a lie. Freedom from investing yourself in someone else's fiction, or freedom to build something real with someone who values honesty as much as you do. If you've ever discovered that your life was a lie, if you've ever had someone you loved betray you so completely that you couldn't recognize yourself or your reality anymore, you know what I'm talking about. You know that initial devastation, that sense of the ground disappearing beneath your feet, but you probably also know what comes after. The slow, painful rebuilding, the decision to trust again, the choice to believe that not everyone is like the person who hurt you. I chose to believe. I chose Emma. I chose Alexander. I chose this life that started with an ultrasound and a doctor's trembling hands, and a truth I didn't want to accept, but couldn't ignore. And every day I'm grateful I made that choice. 5 years after the divorce, when I found myself back at the same medical center where Dr. Martinez had shown me those ultrasound images. Emma was pregnant with our second child, a girl this time we were hoping, though we'd be happy either way. And she'd insisted on using the same obstetrics practice because their reviews were excellent and they took our insurance. I'd been nervous about going back, about walking through those same doors, sitting in that same waiting room. Emma knew the history, understood why I was tense, but she'd also gently suggested that maybe it was time to reclaim the space, to overwrite the bad memory with a good one. She was right, as she usually was. We were sitting in the waiting room, Alexander playing with blocks at my feet, Emma filling out intake forms, when I heard a familiar voice. Mr. Chen? James Chen? I looked up to find Dr. Martinez standing in the hallway, older than I remembered, his hair more gray than black now, but still with that same careful, kind expression. Dr. Martinez, I said, standing to shake his hand. I didn't realize you were still practicing here. Semi-retired, actually, just 2 days a week now. But I couldn't fully give it up. He glanced at Emma, at her obvious pregnancy, at Alexander. I see congratulations are in order. They are. This is my wife Emma and our son Alexander. We're here for her first trimester screening. Wonderful. He looked at Emma. You're in good hands with this practice. Best in the city, if I'm being immodest. Then to me quietly, could I speak with you for a moment? Privately? Emma gave me a questioning look. I kissed her forehead. I'll be right back. Dr. Martinez led me down the hallway to the same consultation room where 5 years ago he'd shown me the images that destroyed my marriage. The room looked exactly the same. Same desk, same chairs, same bland watercolors on the walls. I've thought about you often, he said once we were seated, about whether I did the right thing showing you those ultrasounds, advising you to leave. It was a violation of protocol, possibly of ethics. I could have lost my license. You saved my life, I said simply. If you hadn't told me, I would have signed that birth certificate. I would have been legally responsible for a child that wasn't mine. I would have spent years, maybe decades, living a lie. You didn't violate anything. You gave me the truth. He nodded slowly. I'm glad you see it that way. Some of my colleagues disagreed with my choice. Said I should have stayed in my lane, should have let you discover it on your own. But I kept thinking, if this was my son, would I want someone to tell him? And the answer was always yes. Did you ever hear what happened with Sarah and the baby? I did, actually, through the medical community grapevine. She had a healthy daughter, I believe. Switched to a different practice for her care, understandably. But the outcome was good. That's good to hear. And you? He gestured toward the waiting room where Emma and Alexander were. You found happiness. I did, eventually. It took time, therapy, a lot of hard work on myself, but yes, I found happiness. I'm pleased to hear that. He stood, extended his hand again. Thank you for coming back here, James. Thank you for not letting one bad experience poison this place for you. And thank you for trusting us with your growing family. Thank you for having the courage to tell me the truth. Not everyone would have. Emma's appointment went perfectly. The baby, our baby, undeniably, genetically, truthfully ours, was healthy, measuring right on schedule, heartbeat strong. We decided not to find out the sex this time, wanted to be surprised. The ultrasound technician who performed the scan was young and cheerful, made jokes about the baby doing gymnastics in utero, pointed out tiny fingers, and the profile of a nose and all the beautiful, ordinary miracles of a developing human. I watched the screen with complete certainty this time. No doubt, no suspicion, no fear, just joy and anticipation and the secure knowledge that I was exactly where I was supposed to be, with exactly who I was supposed to be with afterward. As we were walking to the car, Alexander holding my hand and chattering about the baby pictures he'd seen on the screen, Emma said, "Are you okay? Being back there? I'm more than okay. I'm grateful." For what? For Dr. Martinez, for his courage, for the fact that the truth came out when it did in a way that protected me legally. I squeezed her hand. And I'm grateful for you, for believing I was worth taking a chance on despite the obvious emotional baggage. You are worth it, she said firmly. And that baggage, that history, it's part of what makes you who you are. You're careful because you learned to be careful. You're honest because you learned what dishonesty costs. You're present in our relationship because you learned what it feels like when someone isn't. She was right. My marriage to Sarah had taught me lessons I wouldn't have learned any other way. About trust and verification, about the difference between what people say and what they do, about protecting yourself while still remaining open to love. That night, after Alexander was asleep and Emma had gone to bed, I found myself looking at old photos. Not of Sarah, I'd deleted those years ago, but of that version of myself. The James who'd believed everything he was told, who'd never questioned, who'd moved through life assuming everyone else shared his values of honesty and transparency. I didn't miss him exactly, but I understood him. He'd been naive, yes, but also hopeful in a way that was beautiful. He'd believed in the best of people, even when they didn't deserve it. The current version of me, the one shaped by betrayal and divorce and hard-won wisdom, was more cautious, more guarded. But he was also more grateful, more aware of how fragile trust was, and therefore more careful with other people's trust in him, more conscious of the difference between a good relationship and a convenient one. My phone buzzed. A notification from the medical center's portal, the results of Emma's blood work, all normal, all healthy. I looked at the numbers, the genetic screenings, the confirmation that everything was progressing as it should. 5 years ago, in this same medical center, numbers and images had destroyed my life. Today, they were confirming that I'd built a new one. I never expected to hear from Sarah again after the note she'd sent to our wedding. So when a letter arrived 8 years after the divorce was finalized, hand-addressed, forwarded through Samantha Reeves's office, I almost threw it away without reading it. Emma found me staring at the envelope on the kitchen counter. "Is that from her?" she asked. "I think so. It came through my old lawyer's office." "Are you going to open it?" "I don't know. Does it matter what she has to say?" Emma shrugged. "Maybe, maybe not, but you won't know unless you read it." She was right. I opened the envelope. Inside were 3 pages, handwritten in Sarah's familiar looping script. I sat at the kitchen table while Emma made tea, and I read, "Dear James, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you'll throw it away the moment you see my handwriting, and I wouldn't blame you if you did. But I'm writing anyway, because there are things I need to say. Not because I think they'll change anything, but because after 8 years, I finally understand what I owe you. The truth. You know the facts, the affair, the deception, the pregnancy. You have the timeline, the evidence, the documentation. But what you don't have, what I never gave you, was the why. Not the justifications I told myself at the time, but the real, honest truth about what was happening inside me. I was terrified. Terrified of being ordinary. Terrified of settling. Terrified that the life we were building, safe, practical, predictable, was all I would ever have. You were a good man, James. You are a good man. You were stable and kind, and exactly what I thought I wanted when I married you. But somewhere in the first year of our marriage, I started feeling like I was disappearing, like I was becoming smaller, quieter, less myself. And then I met Marcus, and with him I felt alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. It was selfish and destructive, and I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. The affair became an escape from the life I'd chosen but wasn't sure I wanted anymore. When I got pregnant, I convinced myself I was doing something noble. I told myself that you wanted a child, Marcus wanted a child, and I could give both of you what you wanted while keeping the life I'd built. I genuinely believed, and this is the part that haunts me, that you would never know, that the baby would look enough like both of us, that I could manage the deception forever, and I was wrong about everything. Dr. Martinez saw the truth in a 5-minute ultrasound. You saw through my lies when I thought I'd been so careful. And my elaborate plan collapsed in the space of a single afternoon, destroying you in the process. I can't take back what I did. I can't undo the betrayal or erase the pain. But I want you to know what happened after. Marcus and I got married when Sophia was 6 months old. We had another child, a son named Daniel, who is 4 now. From the outside, we look like the family I'd imagined. But the truth is, we've struggled. The relationship that felt so passionate and right when it was secret became complicated and ordinary once it was real. Turns out, an affair built on deception doesn't magically become authentic just because you legalize it. We went to couples therapy for 2 years, worked through the guilt, the judgment from friends and family, the constant question if she could lie to her husband. How do I know she won't lie to me? Marcus has never fully trusted me. I see it in the way he checks my phone, the way he asks detailed questions about where I've been, the way he tenses when I mention male colleagues. I created this. I taught him not to trust me. Just like I taught you last year. Marcus and I separated. We're working on reconciliation now, trying to rebuild what we broke, not just between us, but within ourselves. I'm in therapy alone, trying to understand why I made the choices I made, why I couldn't just be honest, why I thought deception was easier than difficult conversations. My therapist asked me recently, "What do you think James deserved from you?" And the answer was simple. Everything I gave to Marcus. The honesty, the vulnerability, the real, unfiltered version of myself. If I'd told you I was unhappy, if I'd admitted I was having doubts about our marriage, if I'd done the hard, scary work of being honest, maybe we could have separated with dignity. Maybe we could have spared each other years of pain. But I was a coward. I chose the easy lie over the hard truth. I heard through mutual friends that you remarried, that you have children, that you built a life with someone who values the same things you do. I'm genuinely happy for you, James. You deserve that happiness. Deserved it then, deserve it now. I'm writing this not to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, and I'm not entitled to it. I'm writing because I finally understand something important. The worst part of what I did wasn't the affair itself. It was stealing your agency, but I took away your right to make informed decisions about your own life. I forced you to participate in a fiction I'd created without your knowledge or consent. That was the real betrayal. And I'm sorry, I'm deeply, profoundly sorry. I hope you never think of me. I hope the life you've built has completely replaced the one I destroyed. I hope you trust your wife in a way you could never trust me. I hope your children grow up knowing they were wanted, chosen, and loved without deception. And I hope someday I can become the kind of person who deserves that same grace. With genuine remorse, Sarah. I set down the letter and stared at it for a long moment. Emma set a cup of tea in front of me, sat down across the table. Well, she asked gently. She's in therapy. She and Marcus separated. I don't know. She sounds lost. Do you feel bad for her? I thought about it. Did I? There was a time when reading this letter would have felt like vindication, like proof that karma was real and justice existed. But now, 8 years later, with my own children sleeping upstairs and a woman I trusted completely sitting across from me, I mostly just felt nothing. I feel sorry for her kids, I said finally. They didn't choose this. They didn't ask to be born into a relationship built on lies. But her? Do you feel sorry for her? I don't know. Maybe a little. It can't be easy living with what she did, knowing she destroyed something good because she was too afraid to be honest. I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope. But mostly, I just feel grateful. Grateful that it ended when it did, that Dr. Martinez told me the truth, that I didn't waste more years in a marriage that was already dead. I took Emma's hand. That I found you. She squeezed my fingers. What are you going to do with the letter? I don't know. Keep it, maybe, as a reminder. Of what? Of how far I've come, of what I survived, of why honesty matters. I looked at her directly. And of what I have now that I didn't have then, a partner who tells me the truth even when it's hard. Always, Emma said. I promise you that. Always honesty, even when it hurts. I know. And I did know, not because I was naive anymore, not because I assumed everyone was trustworthy, but because Emma had proven it. Through small moments and large ones, through difficult conversations and uncomfortable truths, she'd shown me that it was possible to build a relationship on solid ground. Later that night, I wrote a brief response, not because Sarah deserved it, but because I needed to close this chapter completely. Sarah, I received your letter. I appreciate you taking the time to explain, though I want to be clear. I don't need your apology. What happened between us was devastating, but it also led me to a life I wouldn't trade for anything. I hope you find peace. I hope your children are happy and healthy. I hope you and Marcus figure out what you need to figure out. But I need you to understand something. The version of James Chen you knew doesn't exist anymore. The man you betrayed is gone. I'm someone different now, someone shaped by that experience, but not defined by it. I've moved on, completely. And I need you to do the same. Don't write to me again. Don't reach out. Don't send updates or apologies or explanations. Let this be the end of our story. I wish you well, but from a distance. A permanent distance. James, I sent it through Samantha's office with instructions to forward it and then block any future correspondence. Then I deleted Sarah's letter from my phone, threw away the physical copy, and went upstairs to where my real life was waiting. Alexander was still awake, reading in bed by flashlight even though it was past his bedtime. He looked up guiltily when I opened the door. Dad, I'm almost done with this chapter. 5 more minutes, I said, sitting on the edge of his bed. Then lights out. Deal. He went back to his book, and I watched him for a moment. This perfect, miraculous human who existed because I'd been brave enough to leave a lie and build something true. Emma appeared in the doorway, her pregnant belly prominent under her nightshirt. Our daughter would be here in 3 months. We'd already chosen her name. Lily Rose Chen. Another person who would grow up knowing she was wanted, chosen, loved, without deception. You okay? Emma asked. I'm perfect, I said. And I meant it, because here's the final truth I learned from that ultrasound. From Dr. Martinez's trembling hands, from the whole terrible, necessary experience of my first marriage ending. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is also the best thing. Sometimes betrayal is actually liberation. Sometimes you have to lose everything you thought you wanted to discover what you actually needed. I didn't need Sarah's explanations or apologies. I didn't need to understand her psychology or forgive her choices. Uh, I just needed to accept that it happened, learn from it, and move forward into the life that was waiting for me all along. The life I had now. The life I'd built from the ashes of the old one. The life that started the moment I walked out of that medical center and decided not to go home. Not to the apartment, not to the marriage, not to the comfortable lie I'd been living. If you've ever been there, standing at the crossroads between the life you have and the life you deserve, you know how terrifying that moment is, how easy it would be to turn around, to pretend you never saw the truth, to convince yourself that comfortable deception is better than uncomfortable honesty. But I'm here to tell you, it's not. The truth will hurt. It will devastate you. It will rip apart everything you thought you knew about yourself and your life and the people you loved. And then if you're brave enough, if you're patient enough, if you're willing to do the hard work of rebuilding, it will set you free. I tucked Alexander in, kissed his forehead, turned off his light, walked down the hall to the nursery where Lily's crib was waiting. Already assembled, already loved, already part of a future I could trust. Emma was in our bedroom, settling into bed with the ease of someone who belonged there, who would always belong there, who had never been anything but honest about who she was and what she wanted. I climbed in next to her, felt her familiar warmth, breathed in her familiar scent. Coconut and lavender, nothing like Sarah's perfume, nothing that triggered old memories or old wounds. I love you, I said. I love you too, she replied. Then, because she knew me, because she understood, are you really okay about the letter? I really am. It's just noise from a past life. It doesn't touch this. It can't touch this. She smiled, placed my hand on her belly where our daughter was growing. No, it can't, and it couldn't. Because this life, this real, honest, beautiful life, was built on a foundation Sarah had never given me. Truth. The truth that Dr. Martinez had the courage to share. The truth I'd courage to pursue. The truth that Emma and I had the courage to build on. That night, I slept deeply and peacefully, without dreams of ultrasounds or text messages or lives that never existed. I slept like a man who'd been through hell and found his way out. Like a man who'd lost everything and discovered it was never really his to begin with. Like a man who finally understood what it meant to be home. And in the morning, when I woke to Alexander's laughter and Emma's humming and the promise of another ordinary, extraordinary day, I thought about that moment 8 years ago. Dr. Martinez's trembling hands, the ultrasound screen, the truth that changed everything. And I thought, thank you. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for the life I have now, the life I earned by choosing truth over comfort, clarity over deception, myself over someone else's convenient fiction. Sometimes the worst day of your life is actually the first day of your real life beginning. Mine began in an examination room with fluorescent lights, humming, and a doctor whispering, "Leave this hospital now and file for divorce." I left. I never went home again, and I've never been more grateful for anything in my life.